The Torah gives a person the perspective to see how all of God's creations are part of His grand plan. So when a person sees that there's a big plan, he actually has a love for all of them. So he sees that even though technically people tend to be annoying, he sees that even they are Hashem's children. Even they are part of the big plan. Now, if he has a big ego, he says, yeah, they're part of the big plan, so I can help them. They're part of the big plan, so I get more rewards, I can help them. That's not necessarily the only part of the plan. That's a limited plan. It's a human plan. The bigger plan is they help you. How? Fix you. What do you mean? But I'm the teacher. I'm the parent. Every parent thinks he's Moshe Rabbeinu to his kids. Every parent thinks she's Sarah Imenu to our kids. No, I know, they don't know. No, they're going to teach you whether you like it or not. How are they going to teach you? All that confidence you have goes out the window as soon as the baby starts crying. All that arrogance you show off to your friends goes out the window as soon as one of the kids says, Ima, I'm hungry. The kid will start teaching you things you never knew you even had to learn. Patience, if you don't have patience, you're not going to survive as a parent. Happiness, if you don't have happiness, your kids are going to be miserable. If you don't know how to be happy, they're not going to know what happiness is at all. If you don't know how to be grateful, your kids are going to torture you the rest of your life. Why? Because you're never going to be able to please them. Everything you do, you'll see immediate results from your kids. Which means that although you're here to teach them, they're here to teach you also. Because they hold nothing back by telling you all of the flaws you have. Abba, you see I have a bald spot? No, I didn't see it until you told me, son. But it's not just physical things. It's also the personality flaws we have. Where you see that you lost your cool for no reason because the 3-year-old said your name too many times. And when you really think about it, after you look at him, or you look at her sleeping, and they look so cute and peaceful, and they're like little angels, then you think about it. Did I actually yell at a 3-year-old? Did I seriously yell at a 3-year-old for saying Abba 10 times? Is something wrong with me? Like, that's people's dream. You know how much money people would pay for some 3-year-old to say Abba? You know how many people are willing to, mamash, give a half of their body, their limb. Well, give a limb just to have one little kid say Abba, Abba, 10 times, 100 times. And you yelled at him? You yelled at her for saying Abba? Or you got mad at them for not understanding? Well, do you realize maybe they're 5 years old and technically at 5 years old you were worse than them? Yeah, but I explained it to him 10 times. So explain 11. Who's having more mental deficiencies here? The 5-year-old that's acting like a 5-year-old or the 35-year-old that's expecting the 5-year-old to act like the 35-year-old? He's 5. You're 35. He can explain himself in Shammai. He goes to Shammai, Hashem, I didn't understand. Son, I understand why you didn't understand. Why? Until 6, the Ben Ish Chai says, until 6, you're no different than a monkey. Cute, but monkey. You don't have any chokhmah, binah, vadat. You just begin to get some of it at 6 years old. So when you didn't understand what Abba was saying during the Parashat Shavua, at 5 years old, my son, mitzvah. Why mitzvah? You acted like a 5-year-old. Your father, on the other hand, have to talk to him privately. Your father have to talk to him privately. Why? He didn't understand. So I have to explain to him one-on-one. I have to explain to him one-on-one. Why? Because he yelled at you at 5 years old. Why is it so bad to yell at a 5-year-old for no reason? Because if you yell at a 5-year-old for no reason, you can start teaching him that learning Torah is not good. Why? Because I get yelled at when I learn Torah. I get yelled at when I learn Torah. So I don't want to learn Torah anymore, Abba. Because when we play baseball, you don't yell at me. When we watch movies, you don't yell at me. When you go to work, you don't yell at me. So let's do that stuff. I don't want to learn Torah, Abba. Because you yell at me when I learn Torah with you. And a father could literally destroy his son before he even hits 6. I asked my Rav about bringing somebody to teach my kids. Because schooling is not exactly an easy thing. Baruch Hashem, they're still very young, so it's not really a problem. But as time goes by, unless some miracle happens, or we move to Israel, I don't know what we would do, but most likely bring a teacher to the house. Rav says, yeah, no, we'll deal with that when we get there, but for now, just make sure you're the one that teaches them Aleph Bet. I said, me? Why me? I'm so busy. I have 1.5 million things to do. Students, Baruch Hashem, all over the world. He goes, yeah. Teach the kids Aleph Bet. I said, yeah, but I could get somebody else to teach Aleph. He goes, no, you teach Aleph Bet. So I have all this extra time. All of a sudden, he goes, doesn't make a difference. You teach them Aleph Bet. You and Ima teach them Aleph Bet. Why? Why me and Ima teach them Aleph Bet? Why can't I bring some Talmid Chacham, some teenager that has good midot? Why? He says because at this age, they're so little and so fragile that all chas v'shalom a kid needs is one time somebody loses their cool. One time the teacher, male or female, loses their cool because it's not their son or daughter. And they don't love him endlessly like the parent. And they don't have patience for them endlessly like the parent. The kid's kind of annoying and he smells. The kid's kind of annoying and he's hungry constantly. The kid's kind of annoying and he's not my kid, and so on and so forth. So when a kid does something and you taught him the same Aleph Bet 500 times and you ask him, no, so what is this? And he says Bet instead of Gimel, the teacher loses his mind just a little bit. All of a sudden the 3-4-year-old says, I don't want to learn Aleph Bet, Abba. Why? What happened in school? Teacher yelled at me. So I don't want to learn Aleph Bet anymore. And since the Aleph Bet is the foundation of the entire world, you have to teach them Aleph Bet. You. But I don't have time. Now that you know the magnitude of it, you'll find it. Once they get a little older, you're able to send them to school because they've already have some things that they've learned at home. But people always have to realize that there's a certain amount of teaching you have to do for your kids. Because there are certain things that you need patience as the patience of a parent. But if you don't have any patience as a parent, you have to work on yourself. It's hard, to say the least. You got all types of obligations, financial obligations, mental obligations, all types of things. You're under pressure, less sleep, less this, less that. You have to find 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, where you're in a different world, the phones are off, and you teach them Aleph Bet. Teach them a little bit of this, teach them a little bit of that. You'd be surprised at how much the kids can learn and retain purely from their sponge of a brain, their memory that they have, and later on in their life they'll be able to develop those thoughts. In the beginning, they don't really know what Aleph Bet means. They know how to say it, they know how to repeat it, but they don't know the magnitude of Aleph Bet. But later on, they'll be able to develop that thought. But if yelling comes with the Aleph Bet, screaming comes with the Aleph Bet, hitting comes with the Aleph Bet, guess what's going to come? Despising of the Torah. The entire Torah. Not just Aleph Bet. The people that became heretics and go off the derech, many times it's because of things like this. Some teacher, some parent, somebody made them hate the Torah because they made a small mistake somewhere. And in reality, it was the teacher or the parent or the cousin or the colleague or the student that was a friend of him, of his or hers, that had a bad day and decided to take their frustration out of this poor kid. So he made a mistake, or he forgot something, or whatever. He was a kid. He's simply a kid. What happened? You decided to take all of your life's frustration out on him, on her. And all it took was one time. You don't have to do it every day. One time. One time you made the kid hate Aleph Bet. One time you made the kid hate Parashat Shavua. One time you made the kid hate Hashem, Hashem Yerachem. One time. Why? Because you have problems in your life and somehow you decide it's the kid's fault. So if you're going to have kids, you have to love them, even if they're not yours. You have to love all of the briot, all of the creations, because they're all part of the big plan. The plan is so extraordinary that the more you understand the plan, the more you fall in love with it, and every part of it. The Arizal Alav Shalom, Arizal actually means that, used to tell his students that would come in his room and there was a fly and they would want to kill the fly. He said, no, don't kill the fly. Please, please, please. It hurts me. It's a fly. It hurts me. Please, don't kill him. Don't kill him. Why? Because he knew the fly has a purpose. Us, we kill the fly. He knew the fly had a purpose. If he knew that the fly had a purpose, needless to say, our kids have a purpose. Our neighbor has a purpose. Our boss has a purpose. Our employee has a purpose. Our wives, our husbands have a purpose. The clerk has a purpose. Everything has a purpose. The more you fall in love with the Creator, the more you fall in love with His creation. And His creation is wonderful, even if it's annoying sometimes. Even if it's needy sometimes. Even a lot of things. You have to find a way to love them. It doesn't mean you don't rebuke them. It doesn't mean you let them step all over you. It doesn't mean that. It just means you have to love them. Loving sometimes requires you to rebuke and to save them and push them away from the moving train. But nonetheless, you have to do it out of love. We'll finish here tonight. Never ever look at a kid as like, he looks like a bad kid. Some of the greatest sages tell stories of themselves. When they were kids, they were wild and troubled kids. Troubled kids. I believe it was Rabbi Yaron, Alav Shalom, says when he was a kid, he'd torture people. Mamash, caused noise. He was like a smart kid. But he'd make noise and this and that, so came home one day and decided to take all of his mom's pots and pans and start making music out of it. Talk, talk, talk. That's why the mom says, stop, stop. No, talk, 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 talk. You know, when Adar comes in, we have to Malbim B'Simcha. You know, it's Purim is coming, Malbim B'Simcha, Malbim B'Simcha. And he's making noise, not listening to his mom. So I tell Abba, talk, 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 talk. He's driving his mom crazy. Poor woman, what's she going to do? This kid is making the noise like an earthquake in the house. Shortly later, the father comes in. He's like, stops. He goes, hi, Abba, how are you? Like nothing happened. The wife tells him, don't look at him like that. He wasn't like that 2 minutes ago. So his father comes to him with his son. Is it true? Yes. So how come you stopped when I came? He says, Abba, it says when Av comes, you have to lower Simcha. Av is also, as Av means father, but Av is also a month, the month of Tisha B'Av. When Av comes, you have to lower the Simcha. He goes, Talmid Chacham. I've had trouble. One time a guy, some goy hit him. He decided to slap him in the head for no reason. So he knew that he can't do anything to this giant. He's a little kid. He's like, hey, here. He said, what? The big guy looks at him and goes, what do you want? He goes, here. And he gives him a coin. He goes, what's this for? He goes, what, you don't know? Today is the holiday. Today is the holiday. If you hit a Jew, he has to give you all of his money. He goes, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, well, thanks. Takes the money, And he starts, now if it's a holiday, he's not going to just hit anybody. He looks for the richest guy in town. He looks for the richest guy in town, and this big giant guy is waiting outside of the Knesset. The rich gvir of the town comes outside, with his people, his entourage is with him, and he sees this Arafat over here, comes and trach, hits him. The people jump on him, arrest him. What are you doing? You out of your mind? He goes, what? Give me your money. What money? What are you talking about? They arrest him. You're hitting the Rockefeller. You're out of your mind. Immediately they take him to court. And the Arafat over there tells the judge, he goes, no, listen, this is all scam. I was doing a mitzvah. He goes, what? Who told you this? He goes, what? This kid told me that today is their holiday, that if I hit a Jew, he's supposed to give me all the money. He goes, who said this to you? He goes, this kid, go bring him. They went and bring Yonatan. Little Yonatan says, did you tell him this? He goes, yes. He goes, why'd you tell him that, son? He said, because he hit me. And I knew that if I complained, nobody would listen to me. So I had to get him to court somehow, and now I'm complaining, he hit me. And I'm suing him. Smart kid, but troublemaker. But he became Gdol Ador. When one of the Komerim, one of the big priests, they used to fight with him all the time. And one of the big priests came to his office one time. And in those days, there was no sugarcoating things. Like the Christians told us what they felt about us. Not like today, they pretend to be us. So there was a big, long table. And the priest says to Rabbi Yonatan, he looks at him with his nasty face. And Rabbi Yonatan is smiling, he's happy, and he's looking at this nasty guy. He says, the priest says to the Rabbi Yonatan, he says, come on, what's the difference? What's the difference between a Jew and a dog? What separates a Jew from a dog? Rabbi Yonatan says to him, the table. The table. You know how angry he got? But that's it, Rabotai. Rabotai, the Chachamim were spicy. But many of them were feisty kids. So if you have a feisty little kid, my Rav always told me, he says, listen, he himself was a troublemaker when he was a kid. Fine, he says some of the stories, he doesn't even want to tell me, he's embarrassed. But some of the stories he tells me, Shem Achem, scary. But you get a chacham that way. Why? Why does such a thing happen? Because sometimes there's a big neshama in a small body. Big neshama in a small body. This big neshama wants to be grown up already. And it's surrounded by a bunch of kids. This big neshama wants to do a lot of big things. But the parents are holding him back. The parents are holding her back. She already wants to be a Rebbitzin, teach everyone, but no one understands our language. Because she's only 2 or 3. And she's like, oh, yeah. What did she say? Honey, stop yelling. And she's teaching you, and you don't understand. The lack is in you, not her. Big neshama, small body. If you look at these opportunities as opportunities to work on yourself as a parent, you'll see this kid grow up to be something special in Am Yisrael. If you see it as annoying, and you yell at them, and you scream at them, then honestly, it was better off you didn't bring any kids to the world. Because, unfortunately, you are destroying them in your own hands. It's not their neshama. It's not predestined to be bad. It's not any free choice removed. It's you. God's doing it. All of these people say, no, my son, he's like Menashe. No, Menashe didn't tshuva. No, my son's Amalek. No, that means you're Amalek. The reality is that a person has the ability to influence their kid good or bad. If you're a teacher, you can have an opportunity to teach them good or bad. If you're a parent, good or bad. Mom, dad, brother, sister, doesn't make a difference. That's why learning Musar, learning our Midot, going over it constantly, sharpening ourselves is necessary. It's necessary for us because We need it. We need it to be not only decent people, but decent parents, decent spouses, colleagues, bosses, employees, just decent human beings.